Hello, I'm John McNamara and welcome to HursleyFM. I am joined today by two legends who destroyed Hursley, unsurprisingly
Hi.
by now, like a colossus.
Yes, hi.
First of all, Jez Kelway, hello.
Hello.
And Adrian Warman, hello.
Hello there, how are you doing?
I'm good, and we're coming to you with Technovision surround sound full colour, which is a new thing, and probably the last time we do it, given the feedback we have from our listener. So,
Probably quite accurate.
We'd like you back in animated form, or preferably not at all. That's all possible. Yeah, and the nice thing is you get to see our surroundings and where we work. Adrian's at home. Which looks really, really nice and tidy, and Jez.
I'm also at home.
Yeah. Sure you are. Absolutely.
I have whiteboards all around my house.
Yeah. Would you believe I really do have whiteboards at home?
Oh, yeah.
I've got a little one for song lyrics.
That's right. I've got a medium-sized one for my shopping lists.
I have one, a very long one, that my wife gives me instructions on for things I need to do.
So I am coming direct, live, and loud and proud from the Hursley Laboratories near Winchester in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a beautiful day as well, which is nice. I can
is.
see about 100 yards in that direction are some actual windows to the outside world. A long way away, but I can see daylight, so I know it's not time to go home yet.
Is it real daylight? Are you sure?
Oh God, don't start with that. You already had me quivering in my boots for 2 weeks with that.
Really?
Before. Yeah.
So, guys, are we going to talk? Shall we talk about wonderful tech news? Shall I start with Adrian first? Adrian, do you want to go first and tell us the tidbits that you found?
Yeah, sure. I was very interested to hear a little piece of news that came out recently about Facebook. And it turns out that a couple of years ago, Facebook had actually been modifying the timeline feed information that their users were seeing. And they were doing this for about 700,000 users, something like that. And what they were doing was for approximately half of the users. I can't believe you just did that, John. I really can't.
Did you actually drink that?
Pay me no mind.
It went somewhere.
Carry on.
Okay, right. Calm down. So it turned out that
the screen flashes and it just flashed to John looking really guilty and it just caught me off guard. Sorry, Ed.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Colossus 2, stop messing about.
I tell you, if this carries on, I'm going to have to mute the video again.
This is why we podcast.
It is actually, yes. Okay. So it turns out about 2 years ago, Facebook did a little experiment involving about 700,000 of their users, and what they did was to subdivide them down into two groups, and one group had a slight bias in favour of positive and happy and cheery stories in their timeline, whereas the other group had a slight bias in favour of not so happy, slightly sad stories, and they ran that for about a week, and then they monitored the postings from the Facebook users for the following week just to see what they did, and they found a small, marginally statistically significant difference, so that the people who had been seeing the positive stories tended to be a little bit more positive the week after, but those who saw the stories that were a little bit negative, they were themselves a little bit negative the week after. So there's been this huge amount of discussion online about whether this was a good thing to do or not. And there's all sorts of comments about, is it ethical? Does it breach any kind of human rights legislation or anything like that? And I'm sure it's something that's going to be continuing to be debated for quite some time. But fundamentally, what it boils down to is, if you look at the terms of service for Facebook, one of the things they're allowed to do is to carry out research. Technically, within the then current terms of usage, that phrase didn't actually appear, but certainly as of about 2 years ago, a little bit more recently than the experiment itself, that phrase has appeared, so it has been possible for them to carry out research. So who knows what other things they might have been doing in the meantime.
So the people that were being experimented on by their research didn't know about it at all?
Correct. This has literally only come out right now.
Oh, that's interesting.
Facebook are allowed to conduct experiments on people.
They're allowed to conduct experiments using the accounts and your interaction with those accounts.
Okay, so they're not allowed to sort of just knock on my door and say, right, we've come to experiment on you, Jess.
No,
it's your
quite
time,
right.
buddy. Your usage reached this much, and so therefore we're going to remove your leg.
No, you're okay from that point of view.
No, I'm okay. I'm good. Phew. I'm having a worrying session today. Just worries. The daylight may not be real. I might lose my leg to Facebook. All getting on top of me, man.
It's very similar to a test that was carried out, and it was reported in a book called Freakonomics, which is a brilliant book that I urge you to read.
That's a great book.
Fantastic book.
Really good.
And it was measuring altruism, and way back, I think it was in the 80s, there was an experiment where they would put money, people put money in the change outlets of phone boxes in malls, and what would happen would be people would use these quite a lot, and so they put money in the phone boxes. People would then go to use the phone and go, oh, someone's left some money here, isn't that great? And then a bit further down in the mall, there'd be people asking for charitable donations. And the percentage of people that would give was much higher. But also as well, you might think, well, okay, they've got some money from the phone box. That's fair enough. It seems quite likely that they might use it to give for donations. They'd do other things as well. So they'd have somebody wandering along with a big pile of books, and they'd just have to drop them right in front of the person who just got some money from the phone box. And they would, more often than not, more likely to help if they just received some money from the phone box, and they would stop and help these people and go about their business. Whereas people that would use a phone normally, they were less inclined to help somebody directly afterwards, which I think is really interesting.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. It's that, symbolically, it's that idea of paying it forward, right? That if you receive something in kind, then you're much more likely to pass that sentiment on, and the actual scale of that doesn't really matter. It's just the good feeling associated with receiving means that you can immediately then get a good feel from giving, knowing that somebody's going to receive that good feeling in return. So that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. But there's something that people often forget, in that when you're using Google or Facebook or many of the other social media channels, it's pretty unusual that you've actually paid for that service. And the way that the service is paid for is by partly you seeing adverts and in some cases responding to them, but also the data about you is aggregated and used to sell services on by other companies. So it isn't surprising if the idea of you being experimented on, albeit just by modifying the information that you're seeing, it's not surprising if that might be quite tempting for some organisations.
Well, once again, with the experimenting on, it's giving me flashbacks. Can't cope, man.
I wish I were that in demand, to be honest with you. Fantastic.
Exactly. I mean, it's classic, isn't it? Because I'm a big, I don't subscribe to any pay for any television channels particularly, because there are a few major ones that they're asking me for a subscription, and then they shove 100 adverts down my throat per hour, and I just can't cope. I hate it. But I'll quite happily surf the internet.
Yes.
And just, all the way down the right-hand side column of just, for instance, a page I've got open right now has got loads of adverts. The clever thing is, it's all targeted directly at me. So skateboards, graphic novels, and all sorts of stuff. And I'm going, oh, look, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I might ponder, how do these free websites make their money?
You say skateboards and graphic novels.
No, I'm not looking at your browser, John.
Wasn't there a complaint though? And it was, I can't remember what company it was to, but it was on their YouTube channel, and they were saying, "Oh, I can't believe it! When I look at your YouTube channel, that's meant to be showing things about my databases. All I can see on the right-hand side is smut, just smut. How dare you put these things on your channel?" And actually, it was purely.
Was it a user-based advertising?
Yeah, and it was, it's because that's what they've been used to looking at, and that's what YouTube and Google had pushed toward them. And you think, whoops-a-daisy.
I'm sorry, my phone's going. Hang on.
Oh, and you were saying you weren't popular.
Oh.
We've lost him.
It's actually me doing that, you know.
Is it? Nice. So are we stopping for a moment then, or are we?
I think with these gigs with Google Plus,
you can't edit it, can you?
No, you can trim the either side, but without downloading it and kicking off some editing software, it's quite hard to actually edit.
So I have got video editing software.
Okay, all right.
Not my laptop here, but my one at home I have, so we can, horribly perfunctory edit. If you can download an HD copy, I can do it for you. Really.
I'm sure it can. Yeah, that'd be
cut stuff out dead easy.
Back with you. Sorry about that. That was the car repair is now successfully completed. That's why I'm working at home today. So.
Awesome. Celebration time. So I've got a bit of news. Can I do my bit of news now?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So an amazing article. Now, mostly we're all three of us are a bit geeky and we like a bit of technology. I love it when technology has a profound effect on somebody's life. Right? In this case, there was an article I read where there is a young man called Ian Burkhart who had an unfortunate incident in a swimming pool, I think, but he became paralysed. And he's managed to move his hand using the power of thought.
Wow.
Ooh.
Amazing, eh? Amazing instance of mind over matter. Science fiction became reality when a young paralysed man who was hurt in a swimming pool accident left him with no movement in his limbs from the elbow down, became the first person in the world to move his hand using the power of thought. So there's a neurosurgery that inserted a microchip into his brain and combined it with electrodes, and a computer allowed his thoughts to bypass his broken and damaged spinal cord and move the paralysed limb. That is, we're living in science fiction, man.
We really are.
Hearing stories and stuff like that, and the idea of neurosurgery and implanting chips in the brain. I mean, it's a standard joke in IBM that all managers have a chip in the brain. I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Is it just there?
It's just there. But that, I mean, in all seriousness, that's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Actually,
something that wasn't very widely reported was the opening shot, the opening kick for the World Cup this year was actually performed by somebody who was predominantly paralysed wearing an exoskeleton system.
Oh, cool.
No.
Yes. He was standing at the sideline and it was just a tiny little kick to get the ball onto the pitch. That's all it was. Nothing significant in terms of a kick, but the significance of him as a nearly paralysed person using this exoskeleton system. Amazing.
That's awesome.
I might get in trouble for this, but that's one giant kick for mankind, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Coin the phrase, because that is amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've also always had dreams of, Ripley-esque battle with giant aliens wearing a massive.
Well, who hasn't?
Alien
Yes.
But in reality, my dreams aside, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
It really is amazing. Good story, man. So that's my bit of news that piqued my attention this week.
Awesome, buddy.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
Mine is similar, but actually now may well be trivialised by your bit.
That's why I jumped in.
That's right. But don't you worry about that, fella. There's no problem there at all.
John, I'm not worried.
So I was looking through a website that I love to browse through called Mysterious Universe, and they've also got a range of podcasts which I'd highly recommend anyone listen to. They are fantastic, and there was a wonderful article on there about neurogaming.
Oh.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So gaming's had some bad press over the past few years, or actually the past few decades, I suppose now, really. Because people believe, the perception is that it diminishes the attention span of the people who play. So because
anyway, I'm off.
Who are you and why are you here? So it's been given bad press, rightly or wrongly, true or false. It's been given bad press, but however. There's been an expo, Neurogaming Expo 2014, where the technology on display has been fairly simple, rudimentary, and quite cheap. EEG, EEC headsets that you wear, So the technology is available and it's quite cheap. It's about £100, I think it is, for a headset. Plugs into a smartphone via Bluetooth. But the software that's being created that monitors and allows the impulses to be gamified is really significant. So in the game that you play, in order to be able to say, I don't know, perform a particular action, you would need to focus your attention with clarity upon the object that you want to interact with. And say, for example, if you wanted to, say, demonstrate telekinesis in the game, you'd be required to alter your state, your conscious state, so that you were very, very, very calm in order to be able to interact successfully. Now, the gamers were saying, when they first started playing, it was kind of like really chaotic because there's a massive learning curve. But after a while, after playing this, they began to be able to control their emotions far better and invoke calmness when they wanted or needed to be calm to progress in the game, or to be able to direct their attention with real clarity on particular objects. Now, the really interesting thing is here, they've seen that learning curve go up, and that kind of almost like a progression to mastery of their consciousness and their emotions within like 3 days. And you're kind of thinking, well, if these things go mainstream, you could well have, kids leaving primary school with the mental conditioning of like a Zen master.
Yes.
Be able to control the mental states, be able to focus their attention with real clarity and strength at will, and be able to, say, diffuse situations by just invoking calmness when they need to be calm. And I think that's amazing. I think that's a real step forward for gaming. If we can do that, I think the world will quite literally be a much better place to live in, because you're not going to be dominated and ruled by your emotions if you know you've got mastery over them. So that was my tidbit.
You say so they could potentially leave school with complete control over their emotional state. Yeah. So Vulcans.
Secretly, deep down, you know you want to be a Vulcan, don't you?
See, what are you saying? Is your blood green?
After me drinking that stuff, it's not just his blood that's green.
I invite you to try. With only 74 applications, your skin could be as pale and as pasty as mine.
I can't wait.
No.
Yeah.
Should I drink some for a laugh?
But I'm.
Who's laughing? You or us?
I don't want any of that.
No.
Whatever you're pushing. No, but that would be quite interesting, wouldn't it? Because rather than maybe I say you don't want to lose the emotions, because that's really what drives us as human beings. I'm not sure. But having control over those impulsive ones, like violence and things like that, and maybe fear and a few of those, if you were able to like rationalize those a little bit more quickly, I can certainly see how that'd be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I think so. And also when me being over the age now, weirdly, I know it's hard to believe, of say 22, 23, shocking as it is, when you look back over your life, some of the bits you think, I wish I'd never done that, have typically been because at the point in time you're in that situation, you've let your emotions get the better of you, and you've done things or said things or acted in a way that you think with retrospect maybe you wouldn't have done. But now being able to have the ability by the time you're an adult to be able to then have mastery over that and to step outside of that emotion and go, is that really appropriate for this situation? I think it's huge. I think it's a really big thing.
It is, but I don't want to lose touch with my inner child. We get on really well.
But the other aspect to this, you see, which I think is really interesting, is they often say about how young people today are so familiar with the technology, they're perfectly used to using the internet and tablets and all of that, whereas those of us of, shall we say, an older persuasion have had to learn the technology from the beginning. But what you're talking about there in terms of training yourself to respond and interact with the technology on a really fundamental level, this is a whole order of magnitude more interesting from the philosophical point of view, but by which I mean, what are these people actually going to be like? It's not just that they're really experts at using the technology, but they will be intrinsically part of the technology that they are working with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will we, as people who are not so familiar with that, will we have developed the mindsets, the mental disciplines, the Zen master style, which would enable us to even comprehend the way in which they're thinking?
That's a really interesting thought, isn't it? I mean,
that is a very interesting thought. I mean, for us three, I'm hoping we'll have achieved deification by then via the means of
we will have ascended to the higher planes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping.
By the power of my chair.
By the power of electricity. No, I'm hoping for our own monastery in Tibet. I have far-reaching theories about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very good point, because it's one thing to be able to gain familiarity with a particular technology using your senses, but it's something else entirely to be able to then have that inner control in order to be able to interact with technology.
Exactly.
That's hugely different. And if kids are leaving school with that innate ability, even in terms of technology, it's huge. But in terms of being people in a competitive workplace, when you could be competing with somebody who can concentrate with absolute clarity for hours. You know,
and what's that going to do in terms of the way in which businesses will be working in the future?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because that's philosophy, psychology, and economics.
Yes, it is.
Into one question.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is fascinating, because without a competitive environment as it is now, that's often a big motivator and driver for large organisations.
Yes.
The competitive nature of the individuals within it striving to achieve more. Now, you could say that on a much more meta scale with the human race. It's our competitive instinct and spirit, and people call it natural selection, that really drives us to achieve more than we thought possible.
So if you wanted a couple of really scary extrapolations, the first one would be if you think about the way in which we already take social media for granted. So we pick up the phone, we send a tweet, job done in a few seconds flat. This sort of technology would enable mind-to-mind social messaging without any obvious interaction at all, over any distance. That's the first one. And the second one is, imagine the API to enable that, and imagine some nefarious government actually having control over the root mode of the API, so they could actually monitor your emotional state and what you were thinking.
It's almost Clockwork Orange-like.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Because you could say, well, that's not a good thought, is it? Is that a true fact or a real fact?
So we're going to take over your remote control of your arms, and you're going to walk yourself to the local prison.
Oh,
well, imagine if you're
Clockwork Orange with 1984.
Yes.
Yeah. Or imagine even the possibility of you, say, seeing an address by the leader, and if you thought a negative thought, it could be detected, and you could be punished for that thought.
Yes.
Which is a bad thing, It's very Stalin-esque, isn't it? Where they used to monitor Stalin's rallies, and then they'd see all these people like applauding and standing up, and they keep an eye out for the person that sat down first. And these things could go on for ages. People just standing there, clapping insanely, and then not wanting to be the first to sit down because they could be taken away, and never heard or seen from again.
I think that's with all technologies. There is huge opportunity for abuse.
Yeah.
Right, and I think if we as humans just roll over and let that happen, then we do sort of manifest our own destiny. It's always we need to be the keepers of that, as in all of us, because otherwise you end up in those dystopian concepts where you have an illustrious leader and you get shot if you don't show the correct appreciation and respect. So my time would be very limited very quickly.
Yeah. You then start to run into really situations, because you've only got to look at the average voter turnout for general elections here in this country and similar patterns elsewhere. Yes, you're absolutely right, Jez. People are empowered to take a stance on this, but they're not choosing to take that power, and we're just walking into business opportunities that actually have real scary potential.
I think the scariest thing actually is, rather than being overtly punished for thinking bad thoughts, it's probably the little tweaks. So say, for example, you may end up thinking bad thoughts about leader, and then 3 months down the line, for not really knowing why, you're suddenly thinking wonderful thoughts about leader because of very small changes that are being made that you've not really detected, and suddenly you found your complete outlook on leader is completely changed, but you're not entirely sure why.
Yeah, just like they were testing with the Facebook scenario.
It's come full circle.
We just
did it.
Oh, it is. But, I mean, you can argue with any kind of advertising. Excuse me. It's all targeted. There's a lot of psychology that goes behind clever advertising and marketing campaigns. I learned, thankfully, from quite a young age, if I didn't understand an advert, it just meant that it wasn't intended for me, right? And that still holds true. So it is very, very subtle manipulation in a lot of ways. There's a reason why there's absolute metric swear ton of advertising around children's programs, because if you seed that thought early on in development, it becomes mantra and it becomes canon for that child, right? Scary stuff, but we let that happen. So anyway, I mean, we're into that misanthropic soapbox ranting opportunity, and I usually love to take that. And were we down at the docks in that meeting I go to, I'd be on it right now.
Gotcha.
But, it can get boring quickly if you're not signed up.
Well, actually, we're coming to the top of the hour. We've been at it now for a good 25 minutes.
That's long enough for anyone to look at our faces, surely.
I think. Should we show a little bit of mercy and close it down?
I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll wind this up. It'll go up to YouTube. We might do a little bit of sanitation, and then we'll post it out on HursleyFM for everyone to see, along with any links that we may have mentioned in our hangout.
Excellent.
This is an experiment as well. So if there's any feedback, we'd rather not see your face. We need to know that.
Yes, definitely.
Unless it's my face, keep that to yourselves, right? Yeah.
If you've had enough of John's face, please write.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much for joining in. Take care. Cheerio.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.